Yo, yo, yo. Yeah, haven't streamed for a couple of days, but I've been missing it. I've been excited to do some more debates, take some more people down. So, yeah, let's get back on it. Cool, cool, cool. Just going to check my watch. All right, let's get the people rolling in. Let's get the debates going. Sweet. So, yeah, we're here representing the movement fighting for the end of all suffering. We're the only movement in the world actually doing activism to work towards total extinction and the total abolition of all suffering. So at the minute we have total acceptance of suffering, acceptance of unlimited suffering. That's wrong. It's horrifically wrong. It allows the worst things possible, and the victims don't deserve it. Most life born in this world is actually having a terrible life and would overwhelmingly be better off not being born. So that's unfair. To allow this to continue is a form of oppression, it's cruelty, it's unnecessary, and it's wrong. So nobody should have to be born into a bad life, and that is the worst thing that can possibly happen. So yeah, we should fight against that. And it is the absolute worst thing that could possibly happen to be trapped in a terrible life. So nobody deserves that, and nothing can possibly justify that either. Safety from a terrible life of pure misery, pure hell, is infinitely more valuable than any amount of pleasure. So even if we had to, save one child at the sake of 1 billion people being happy, it would still be the right thing to do, because suffering is too extreme and terrible to allow. And living and having fun, that's optional. You don't actually need that. You can do without it. Whereas you can't do without safety from a life of pure extreme hell. Okay? So that's what we're doing at the Pro-Extinction Movement. We started 3 years ago and we've been growing globally ever since. We are doing activism to work towards causing total extinction. So we'll be doing it forcefully. This won't be voluntary. It won't be optional. We need total extinction of all animals. Obviously, you can't ask them for consent. You just have to do it. And the same is true for humans, because humans are essentially just animals as well. Without total extinction, they'll keep reproducing, they'll repopulate, and the cycle of suffering will continue for billions of more years. So that's why it has to be absolutely total extinction, and as thorough as possible as well, so that it doesn't come back. Okay, let's try and get a guest on. Hello, how's it going?
How you doing, James? Thanks for letting me up, man.
Yeah, no worries.
You say when? I mean, when will you be extinct?
So we expect it to be a multi-generational mission. So, I'll probably just pass away normally, as most people will as well. We need humanity to continue strong and healthy for hundreds or thousands of years while helping other life which can't help itself, if that makes sense. So humanity has to go last as the only ones capable of helping others.
Right. So what if people don't want to be extinct? I mean, you're saying forcefully, you're going to force people to become extinct.
Yeah, because if you don't do that, then you're allowing them to keep reproducing and to force others into suffering, and you're also putting them into danger of suffering as well. So extinction and euthanasia provides immediate safety from a bad life and from a bad death and from reproducing. So it's good for life in every way, shape, and form.
So are you going to be extinct first? Are you going to lead the way and say, I will give my life for this movement?
Yeah. So that's what I am doing. I'm doing activism for it, giving my time, my resources, and it's impossible to cause total extinction without sort of controlling the world, obviously, right? So that's what we're fighting for, to change the world, to make it against suffering. It's going to take a long time, though, so we don't expect extinction to happen anytime soon, but we still have to fight for it, otherwise it will never happen.
So the thing is, you're going to be long gone. before this extinction happens. Is that true?
Well, you don't know. I mean, for all we know, we might cure aging by the time I get older. It might happen sooner. Who knows?
So if it happens sooner, are you going to volunteer to be extinct as an example to everybody else?
No, because like I said, it's forcefully. So making an example would be the opposite of the right thing to do. So we
So
don't want. So we're not asking people to take action into their own hands. That would be unfair. It would be cruel to them as well. So it has to be done for them.
So you're going to forcefully cause people to be extinct, and you're going to oversee this. So you're not actually going to be extinct. Is that?
Oh no, all life should go extinct. Yeah.
But have you ever, to be fair, have you ever heard of the Georgia Stone?
The what?
The George, if the Georgia Stone.
No.
Okay, that's fair enough. So you talk about forcefully causing total extinction.
Yeah. I mean, life is forced to exist anyway, so force is already used to impose bad things on life. And in the same way that the police use force, we need to use force to prevent suffering.
Yeah, but I mean, how are you suffering in your life? Is this what's making you feel like this?
Well, no, it's about compassion for others and doing the right thing, working towards the right world.
But for me personally, I mean, I
Yeah,
go
but
through
it's not
time.
about me, it's not about you. It's about having compassion for those that need this, that need safety from suffering. So I get that most people, yourself included, can't think outside of that selfish mentality of why would I do this? Why would I want this? And the answer is that because, there are life forms out there that need help. Most people don't have empathy, so they can't understand the idea of wanting to help others. And I understand that's why you can't understand it. So we're
Yeah,
different in that sense. We actually care about other life.
and that's why you want to end other life because you
No, we
care
want to.
about it.
No, it's not that we want to end life. It's that we want to provide safety for life.
But I mean, safety for life. Now, is safety for life? I mean, to be fair, would you being extinct be safety for the rest of life on Earth? If you were made extinct, because you're talking about making life extinct.
Yeah.
If you were made extinct, would that make life safer for other people?
I would say it would make it less safe because we're the only movement fighting for total safety for all life. So we need activists, we need the movement, we need to be working towards this, right? So yeah, if you take away from the anti-suffering team, you're causing more suffering, basically.
It's not anti-suffering though; it's pro-extinction.
Yeah, but it's not that we're obsessed with extinction, it's that we're empathetically, compassionately drawn towards finding a solution to all of the suffering in this world. And the only solution which is ethical is total extinction.
But is it not better to understand that suffering and pleasure are part of the same circle of life? So we have suffering, but then getting through that suffering, we have pleasure, and then a
But
certain
who's we?
amount.
Who's we?
Well, me personally, if I'm
Right, but
suffering,
again, we've got to think about the others, right? You have to, if we're talking about what to do for others, then we can't talk about ourselves. We have to consider the bigger picture and everyone, right? If I just sat here and talked about myself, that wouldn't be relevant to anyone, right?
but if you were talking about yourself, I mean, why would you be an example? Would you be willing to extinct yourself as an example to say, I
Yeah,
want to
but
end all
again,
suffering?
that would be counterproductive. Essentially, you're asking if it would be helpful to basically do self-harm to get other people interested in self-harm. So no, not at all. That's completely the opposite of what we're about.
But if you talk about self-harm to get other people involved in self-harm, surely forcefully causing total extinction, that is self-harm as well. But it's not just
Not
self-harm,
really,
that's
though.
harm. It's harm to other people.
Well, no, it's about providing safety. And if you care about harm, then extinction is the only way to prevent harm.
Do you not believe that safety could be helped by basically just helping people to understand that suffering is a part of life, and
No,
that pleasure
no,
will
because
come.
you
Pleasure
know,
through
so you're suggesting Buddhism basically,
of sorts,
but
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Well
but
said, well
most
said.
victims, most sufferers are unable to benefit from Buddhism anyway. So it's a pipe dream. You can't teach animals to be Buddhists. You can't teach most babies or children, human babies and children to be Buddhists. And realistically, Buddhism does nothing for the worst forms of suffering anyway. So it's not a solution to anyone at all.
But I'm not sure about that. Like I said, do you not
But
think
so
that?
have you seen many animals take on Buddhism? And
Obviously,
do you
come on,
really
man.
think that
That's not even
Buddhism
a
is going to
relevant
help you when you're
question.
being eaten alive?
That's not a relevant question. That's not
Why?
relevant.
Why is it not relevant? Most sufferers are animals, so it's absolutely relevant.
But what about the karma kingdom? You know what I mean? I suppose.
What the hell is the karma kingdom? What drugs are you on?
Oh, come on, man. Come on. Let's not be making accusations. The point is, like, if animals, basically, it's all part of the karma kingdom. If you
What
keep
the hell is
happy
the karma
animals,
kingdom?
as
What
in,
is this thing that you've made up? What is
as
it?
in, if people die, there is a belief that if people die, you go through the animal kingdom, so you'll be reincarnated as an animal, and you
Right,
work
but
your way
we have to
through
believe in the
until you
scientific
can.
method. We have to do things rationally, right? If you're going to say, oh, don't do that, a ghost might pop out, then you'll never do anything. So, we have to do things rationally, scientifically. You don't have scientists saying, oh, don't use that pipette. I think it's haunted. So forget the science. That
But
would just be insane.
do you believe in progression and evolution, development, and yeah,
Yeah.
progression, evolution, and development? So how would causing extinction be good for progression, evolution, and development?
Yeah. So those are just words. And so they don't actually
No,
need anything like you're
that's
suggesting.
a way of life. Progression,
Yeah.
evolution,
But
and
again,
development. A
you're
way of
just talking about
life.
words. The only thing in this world that actually needs moral consideration is life, right? So you wouldn't give moral consideration to a book or a rock or, a glass of water. You'd give moral consideration to life forms that are actually suffering. So how would it be
Exactly.
good for them? Because essentially this world is too dangerous for them to exist in. So to be safe from danger is a good thing. So in that way, yeah, it's the ultimate form of progress, safety from suffering.
But do you not think you're a danger to life?
No, the thing is, life is the danger to life, right? If life didn't exist, then innocent life forms wouldn't be getting tortured, children wouldn't be getting abused to death. So where's the real danger? It's in being forced to exist in extremely dangerous conditions. That's the problem.
Well, what about progression, evolution, and development? What about educating
Yeah,
people
but
to not
again,
cause the
you're
suffering?
ignoring the vast majority of sufferers. So what you're suggesting is not a solution to the vast majority. It's completely useless. Animals can't be educated, right? So I don't know what you're talking about, really.
I don't. Animals can't be educated. That's fine, but they can be farmed and used for food.
Yeah, they
But
can be tortured, so that's why they shouldn't
it's not
exist.
torture. I don't see the problem in farming an animal,
You
keeping it
don't
happy,
see the
looking
problem with
after it.
torturing animals?
I'm not saying torturing animals. I'm not. I don't believe in torturing anything.
So,
But
but you believe in animal farming, which is
I believe in
obviously
eating meat. I believe in eating meat. To be
okay.
fair,
So you believe in cruelty.
no, I don't. I believe in the karma kingdom. And if
So you
animals,
have some sort of spiritualist belief which makes you support child abuse, basically.
no, man, where does
Yeah,
that come from? Where does that
because you're
come
saying
from?
that child
Why
abuse
would
is
you
just
say
this karma
that?
kingdom of yours,
Whoa, man, why
right?
would you? No, I don't believe. Listen, the
Okay, mate,
point is,
you're done, you're finished, you're cooked and served, all right? You couldn't even respond to that because you're caught, you're done. All right, let's get some new guests on. Join the queue. Let's bring you up onto the stage.
Hello.
Hello, how's it going?
I wanted to tell you about this new project that I've been working on. It's something to do with your kind of thing.
Sure.
So I've been working with kind of like artificial life. They call them brain organoids, right? You can look it up later or whatever. But essentially, they are like human brain cells that are grown in a petri dish. We use them like computers.
Yeah.
So they take me. We don't know if they have like souls or if they're conscious or whatever, but they can kind of like fly around like a butterfly, right?
Yeah.
So in their butterfly form, what we've got them doing is we have them like a string tied around them, and they have to pull bricks around all the time.
Okay.
Well, by the way, we're called the pro-suffering movement. We want to make like everyone suffer. We're looking for the cure
Okay.
for.
Well, yeah. So the world is full of evil people, like that guy who, will openly admit it, like Bonus Kudos, who comes on and says, "Oh, any child abuse that ever happens, that's just karma. So don't worry about it." So yeah, we live in a world that supports unlimited suffering, unlimited child abuse. Like the last two guests that came on, you say to them, look, you have billions of children being tortured to death, and they say, well, let's find a reason not to care. We'll call it karma, and that way we don't have to care. So there's no amount of child abuse that these people would object to. Right? There could be literally unlimited. So there could be, we could be in an ocean of children being abused and they'd be fine with it. And ironically, we are in an ocean of children being abused. Most life forced to exist onto this planet will be murdered as a baby, right? Whether it's by freezing to death, starving to death, or being eaten alive, which is my personal fear. They're being tortured to death as babies in the vast majority of cases. So it's very obvious, right? If if your mother was going to be forced to experience being eaten alive as a baby and you could prevent it, you would, right? You'd prevent it for yourself. I mean, personally, again, like being eaten alive is like my biggest fear. And yet that's what is happening to most life. One of the scariest and worst things possible. And yet, people like Bonus Kudos, they want that to continue. They want more children to be abused for the rest of time. So, there's no limit on it. They're not doing anything about it. They're sitting back on their sofa, and instead of fighting for, something good, they're finding people like myself that are saying we should abolish all suffering and telling us not to do it. That's the kind of people they are. They're not good people. They literally see something good and they attack it. They see someone saying suffering is wrong and they say, no, it's good. Children benefit from being abused. So, yeah, Bonus Kudos was absolutely supporting child abuse by just saying, we've got this magic wand called karma and it allows as much child abuse as you want. So you just wave this wand and that's it. You can ignore the child abuse. So that's ridiculous. We should abolish all suffering and all potential suffering. Hello, how's it going?
Hey, what's up, man?
Yo.
So, I mean, I guess I agree that the most important thing right now is ending suffering. But I guess what I don't agree is that it's the only way to end suffering. So
Okay.
I'm not sure.
But it is the only way to provide 100% safety, right? So therefore, it is the only way to end suffering.
No, I don't agree with that. I don't agree that we're capable.
So
of ending
you
suffering.
think that we're going to develop magic or something and, be able to like click our fingers and then suddenly all life goes to heaven? You think that's realistic?
No, I don't.
No,
I don't
exactly.
think that's realistic.
No, it's
But
completely
what I-
unrealistic. Whereas the only real safety from suffering and from a life of hell is in non-existence, because this world is far too dangerous for life to exist.
Yeah, so I think that non-existence for any given life form is achievable, but I don't think that non-existence for all life forms is an achievable thing.
Why?
I think that would be something like, snapping our fingers, like that's like a
Why?
sci-fi thing.
Why?
We're not capable.
How?
Yeah, so I don't think that
In what
we're
way? In what way would it be like snapping our fingers?
Yeah, exactly. So
No,
I think
I'm
that
asking
life-
you, right? But
Yeah,
we've
I'm about to
already
explain.
made
I'm about to
lots of
explain.
species of animals go extinct. We control animal populations in the hundreds of billions. So why would causing a bit more extinction be impossible?
No, okay, so it's not a bit more. Remember, it's all life, right? So
Yeah.
it's not practical to
Why?
cause the extinction of all life.
Why?
Because not all life forms we are capable of fully causing the extinction of.
Why?
Right? There's life forms at
Why?
like the bottom of. Yeah, I'm about
So
to
why is
explain.
that impossible?
Yeah, I'm about to explain. Just chill out. There's life forms at the bottom of the ocean, feeding on thermo vents or whatever they're called. We can't feasibly cause the extinction of all of those life forms.
Why not?
Yeah, because the bottom of the ocean is inaccessible. Not only
not accessible. It's of course it's accessible.
You think that we've been to every part of the? You think that we've been to the deepest?
No,
parts
no,
of the
I
ocean?
didn't say that. So now you're straw manning.
Okay, so it's accessible. How is it accessible?
Well, with science and technology, we're already starting to do it. With thousands of more years, it'll be a piece of cake.
Okay, and how is it feasible to go to all of these points, right?
Well,
when you have all these points,
when you have all the time in the world and exponential science and technology, you'll find that lots of things are quite possible.
Okay, so how is it like that? Doesn't tell me that how it's possible.
By
That just
trying,
tells me that some
right?
things are possible.
It's possible to try, so we should try.
Okay,
You're done.
So you're saying
You're
so you're
finished.
saying that scientific.
You're cooked and served. Yes, science progresses. Science can solve problems. You absolute brainless person. Like, wow, that sounds like it would be difficult to do today. That is the extent of these people's ability to think. They are completely incapable of saying, we could do better tomorrow, right? That concept is just foreign to their brains. It's unbelievable. So, yeah, and again, it's not about saying we have to do 100% of the universe. It's about doing as much as we can and trying to do as much as we can. So people like that, they're really just trying to come out with lame, pathetic excuses to not try to do anything about suffering. With, straw man after straw man, by the way. Okay, let's bring on Johnson & Johnson. Hello, how's it going?
Hey, how are you?
Good, thank you. Do you have any questions for us?
Like, what do you mean by the total extinction of all life is the only right thing to do as it ends all suffering? Like, do you mean that literally?
Yeah, we should cause total extinction for all life and prevention of any life coming back anywhere for as much as we can. So because that's the only way to provide safety for life from suffering and from a life of hell.
So what about plants?
Yeah, they should go as well because they could potentially evolve into sentient life.
I disagree with that, dog.
Really?
Because I feel like for things to be here and for us to have a drive to procreate, and since everything naturally goes towards like pro-life and pro-living, I feel as though we're supposed to.
What do you mean everything goes towards pro-life and pro-living? Most of the universe is uninhabitable.
Well, we don't know that.
Well, we do.
The observable universe, maybe, but we don't even know where we're at.
So now you're appealing to things that we don't know. You're
about to send me down a rabbit hole, bro. I don't want to have an existential crisis today.
Okay, but we should support abolishing all suffering and prevention of all suffering, right? Otherwise, we're saying that, children deserve to suffer.
Well, I mean, I feel like we should advance technology. If we advance technology enough, we could end suffering.
But the thing is that you're trying to do it in an unethical way, right? So that's wrong. If you're not prioritizing suffering, then you're never actually going to deal with it effectively. To say that we should, maybe if we got time for it, we can think about it. That's not good enough.
Well, eventually all suffering will cease as technology advances.
Not necessarily.
Because once we get certain technology to help people live longer, or we could even get technology to where we're not even physical beings anymore, we're just consciousness.
Right, but again, if your priority isn't ethics and safety from suffering, then you're guaranteeing that you're condemning others to suffer terribly. So that's what we're against. We're against the policy which people like yourself have, which says that, suffering isn't the priority. We should allow it and not care about it.
Like suffering is I feel like it's not as bad or maybe it's just the part of the world I'm in. So I don't see the extent of how much suffering is really happening.
Well, look, most life born onto this planet will die a gruesome death as a baby in nature. So, even just on that basis, most life would benefit from not being forced to exist.
So why is it going to die a gruesome death just in nature though? Like, why is that going to happen?
So many species will have hundreds, thousands, even millions of children over the course of their individual life, because nature is so dangerous and unforgiving to life that each animal has to have, hundreds or thousands of children to get even one or two to survive. So the vast majority are it's a meat grinder, basically. The vast majority will be tortured to death.
I don't know about that, man.
Well, then you should do some science. You should read about it instead of just blindly doubting it.
I feel like for everything to exist and everything to lean in the direction that it's leaning, for all the procreation to be happening, and for us to desire to eat and live naturally, and it's in animals, it's in plants, that means that this is supposed to happen this way.
I think I just lost a few IQ points listening to that.
If we have an innate drive to live and procreate and create more life.
So when I tell you that most life here is being tortured to death as a baby, you don't even bat an eye, right?
Who's being tortured to death as a baby?
Most life born on this planet.
But for what cause, though?
None. The thing is, nature doesn't have a brain, right? Nature doesn't think what it's doing. It's just something that happens. It's like an asteroid smashing into a planet. You wouldn't say, well, why did it do that? No, did it have a good reason? Can we read its diary and see what its thought process was? There's nothing like that.
Well, those things being tortured to death, are you saying they're being eaten, like consumed by other species?
Yeah, animals are basically food on legs. And the easiest food to get is the younger ones that can't defend themselves as easily. So yeah.
But that's life for another. That's another species that's trying to live. That's motivated for like survival and living.
But most of them though are going to die horrifically. So there's no winners in this game, and most animals are having a terrible life either way, right? I mean, would you want to be an animal? No, because it's obvious that to be any sort of animal, even the lucky ones, it's a terrible existence where you can't look after yourself. You're in constant fear, danger, running for your life all the time. You've got diseases, parasites, starvation, no medicine. I don't understand why what exactly it is that you're glorifying and think is worth having a meat grinder for babies and children to be forced into.
Well, some animals are a billionaire's house cat.
Oh, okay, so the vast majority of life deserves to be tortured as a baby because some billionaires might have a house cat.
Would you want to be a billionaire's house cat?
Okay, I think you're done, you're finished, and you're out of here, buddy. All right, let's get our next guests on. If you want to join and come up to the stage, now is the time to push that button. Come and share your opinions, give us your questions, give us your thoughts. Are you curious about the movement? Do you want to become an activist? Now's the time to join that queue. Let's get you up on stage and have a conversation. So yeah, most people are so irrational and illogical when it comes to suffering that you can literally say, would you support 99% of babies being tortured to death so that a few billionaire cats can have a good life? And, people like that will say, yeah, of course we should torture infinite babies so that, a few tiny minority can have fun at their expense. Wow. I mean, is that not the definition of evil, of oppression, and insanity? Right? Literally saying, yes, we should have 99% of babies get tortured to death so that some can benefit at their expense. Right? No baby should be tortured. No baby deserves to suffer. And no baby deserves to be forced into a life that they didn't ask for, with a family that they didn't ask for, a country that they didn't ask for, diseases, genetic mutations and problems that they didn't ask for, right? How many humans and animals are born into a life of pure chronic pain and a cruel death? How many are born into a life of pure hell where they're begging for death every single day and still can't escape? Far too many. So the suffering scale or spectrum of all life in this world, most people, they're only capable of thinking to like halfway down, and then that's it. Their brains just stop, right? The program simply stops. They cannot think past that. But, you know, past stubbing your toe, there's all sorts of horrific forms of suffering. But people are just blind to it. In fact, they literally can't even think about it, even if they try. And so they'll end up saying crazy things. And that is basically what you'll see every time you watch my stream. You will see me forcing people to say insane things to defend their position out of desperation. Hello, how's it going?
Hi James, Tawanda here. I find your, so first time I came across this, it was on Reddit. It was something called Elifism, life spelled backwards. I don't know if you've got any contact with, with that particular strain of the same movement. But you know what? My thoughts really are that, like, you kind of have to give people a choice, right? I mean,
Right.
life is.
Thing is, right, if you said to someone, right, you can abuse this child to death, you've got the freedom to do it, that's not a good thing, right? So that choice, that freedom that you're glorifying is the same freedom to kidnap children and abuse them to death. So it's not a good thing.
Yeah, but then at the same time, there's this whole spectrum of, of interventions that you could try. So, for example, you could
Like
think,
what?
okay, well, we're not going to save every single child from being abducted and abused. Like that's going to
But we
happen,
should have a
unfortunately,
zero
very
tolerance
tragically.
policy. People like yourself have this mentality that it's okay if some children get abused, right? It's totally acceptable to you. So no child abuse is acceptable. We shouldn't use it as a bargaining chip and say, yeah, they should get, murdered, they should get molested to death so that some people can have fun at their expense. That's absolutely unacceptable. And as long as you have that mentality, then you are allowing infinite child abuse. There's no limit on it, right? So you're not saying, well, if 10,000 children get molested a day to death, then it's too bad. That's the limit. For people like yourself, there's usually no limit on how much child abuse you're happy with.
Actually, personally, I'm pioneering, well, I mean, thinking about a system where we detect crime before it happens, right?
Okay,
Because I really
but
would
that's not
like
going to help
for
the
all
vast
of this.
majority of life. That's irrelevant, right? The vast majority of life is suffering horrifically in nature, and there's no crime going on there. The crime is nature. The criminal is nature and reproduction. And that's what we have to stop. We have to stop life being forced into extreme suffering. That is the ultimate harm. And as long as you're ignoring that, you're ignoring the worst off victims, the worst off suffering, and you're supporting their suffering and their misery.
Right, so you're putting it as suffering. I mean, does suffering to you, like, does it coincide with pain? Because obviously, but then you experience pain. Like, it's better for you to experience pain than not to experience it, because
Would you
if you were
tell that to a
born.
child being abused to death? Well, you probably would.
No, I wouldn't.
You
I
probably would.
definitely would not. I
And
definitely would not.
yet that's what
I
you're
would
doing
say,
now. And yet that's what you are doing now.
but what if this child wants to live?
So, but that's the thing, is that even if they want to live, they're not going to. So you're condemning them to have their dreams ripped away from them violently.
So you'd rather the child never has the capacity to have a dream than to have a dream that's crushed.
So let me ask you this. If a pedophile was going to kidnap a woman, impregnate her, chain up the baby in its dungeon, and molest it to death, you would say we should allow that. Don't prevent it.
I would say we should try as hard as we can to make sure that doesn't happen.
So,
And
exactly,
thankfully,
right.
it's not
So
a
we should
common
prevent
thing.
forced existence and extreme suffering. So you would prevent that? Yeah, great. That's what we should prevent for all life.
Yeah, but here's the thing, though. You're trying to prevent 100% chance of
Yes,
something that only
exactly. That's
happens.
what we should do. We should provide safety for children. You're saying that we should literally diminish that safety.
What I'm saying is we can't prevent, like, we can't take an extreme measure to
Why?
prevent something that happens
Why?
0.1% of the time.
But it's not 0.1% of the time. And the vast majority of life is being tortured to death as babies. So it's actually the vast majority, which you are casually ignoring.
But that vast majority of life, we don't know the extent to which it suffers, right?
Yeah, we
don't
do.
know
Yeah, we
the,
do.
the
We
totality
do.
of its
We do.
consciousness.
No, I mean, we definitely do. We know that life suffers terribly. You know, we know that someone torturing a kitten is causing suffering. You know, people like yourself like to, see that abuse and try to justify it and laugh about it and trivialize it. But really, these babies are being tortured. And as much as you like to sort of deny their reality, which is disgusting, by the way, and they are out there suffering terribly.
So one thing I would like to hear from you though is that life is so incredibly improbable. I mean, from what we
No,
understand of
it's
the
not. From what
universe,
we understand, it's actually extremely probable. We've actually done scientific research on this, and life will be much more likely in the universe. It will be teeming with life compared to what previously was understood. And so the story will be the same as on Earth. It will be billions of years of pointless suffering and extreme cruelty, lives of pure hell and misery for the vast majority. And so, yeah, we should try and prevent as much of that as we can.
right? So should we not rather give the option? So, for example, maybe make self-unaliving easier, right? Like just give
No,
people
no,
as many of those
because
options.
you're suggesting that we make people suffer so much that they have to commit the ultimate act of self-harm. That is morally reprehensible, right? You are literally advocating for forcing people into lives of hell. It's not acceptable, and it will never be acceptable. Torturing children, torturing animals, it's not something that you can use as a bargaining chip. And as long as you're accepting that and saying that it's acceptable, you're always going to have a cruel, disgusting world where people like you walk past children being abused and say, that's just life. Ha ha ha. I'm getting to benefit, so it's okay. I've had 10 ice creams today. That makes up for the child abuse that you're experiencing. So all is good and well.
I mean, don't you think it's like authoritarian though to make the decision that, you know what, life is, and I don't have to consult anyone. I've come to the philosophical conclusion, and I think it's
The children should be
incredibly
abused.
precise. No,
Yeah.
that there should be no life because you have to consult all the people, the 8 billion people currently alive,
No,
the
no,
hundreds of billions who
no,
are
you
going
don't
to be
have to
alive.
do anything stupid like that, okay? The responsible way to end and prevent suffering, to abolish it, is to do it as fast as possible and as ethically as possible. So allowing sadists the freedom to go around and keep torturing animals until they get bored of it, that's not acceptable, that's not ethical, it doesn't make sense. You're prioritizing the oppressors over the victims. So that's completely upside down, doesn't make any sense. And again, it's morally disgusting and reprehensible.
May I ask finally why you have this absolutist view, right? Which is so binary that you've got the child abusers, you've got the perpetrators, the vast majority
Yeah, which is you.
of human
You are
beings
one
at
of them.
least.
You're literally saying that child abuse should continue. So you are one of the perpetrators.
I'm saying that realistically, we cannot prevent it. However,
Why?
it's not happening
Why
to the
can we not
majority of
realistically
children.
prevent it?
because statistically, you're going to have people with the opportunity and people with the inclination, the resources required to make sure that no person has child abusing inclinations, no person on a scale of 8 billion people, by the way, that's just not possible. So
What are you talking
unfortunately,
about?
you know, I'm talking about the resources to prevent what you're talking about with the best will in the world, right? I don't
Yeah.
want any child abuse, but
Right.
with the best will in the world, the resources to prevent it, they're just, you know, they're just not there. Like, what if
Yeah.
someone wants to child abuse in a jungle in Uganda? You know, like, how am I going to prevent
Right.
that?
Exactly. So total extinction is the only answer.
What about the child who's going to have a three, you know, like who's going to have their birthday when they turn 3, and the Easter bunny's going to come, and they're going to be happy, and that they're going to feel so privileged to be alive, you know? What about
Yeah,
that
but
child?
again, you're prioritizing a tiny minority who doesn't need that privilege and saying that, these rich kids who are selfish pricks anyway should get to have a birthday cake, even if it means that, 10 children get tortured to death so that it can happen. Like, what is wrong with you?
The proportion of children who are suffering horrifically, I would say, is much less than the people who just live normal, you know, okayish
No, it's
lives.
the opposite. It's the exact opposite. So the thing is that the dead don't tell stories, the disabled don't tell stories. So it's just out of sight, out of mind. You're living in a fantasy, and your entire fantasy bubble revolves around and depends on completely ignoring reality, completely not caring about the sufferers, ignoring them, downplaying their realities and their experiences, trivializing it. So you're literally looking at children getting abused and saying, "Yeah, it's not that bad. They deserve to suffer." So you are literally supporting oppression, supporting infinite child abuse. Why are you doing this? We should have a zero tolerance policy on suffering and extreme suffering. And to say that we shouldn't, you are saying that children should be tortured to death, and the vast majority of life born on this planet are dying as babies in nature in worse ways than anything that humans experience. So their suffering is far worse than human suffering. Human babies aren't being eaten alive en masse, whereas animal babies are. So yeah, the vast majority of life is being tortured, and you don't seem to care about it.
Well, the first so pivoting to animal life, that's incredibly horrible. However, how do we actually know, like, you know, the subjective experience of this animal? I mean, how do we know that, you know what, this suffering is really very bad, or it's just a kind of vegetative, you know, kind of,
The thing
you
is,
know,
while life
state?
exists, there's always going to be all different severities of suffering. So we know that, life is terrible for most animals, and for some it's going to be even worse, right? So it's not a question of how do we know that they're suffering. It's just a spectrum of suffering, but most animals are way down on that spectrum to where they would be better off not being born. You wouldn't want to be an animal. You wouldn't want anyone to be forced to be any sort of animal, even a rich animal, right? It's going to be a terrible life where you're confused, you're in fear the whole time. You're not designed to be happy. You're designed to be out there just surviving and reproducing. Nature and life doesn't care about you. It doesn't care about your comfort or your happiness or quality of life. It only cares about forcing you to be stupid enough to reproduce. And that's it. That is the only thing which matters in this world, essentially, and which contributes to future generations. It's reproduction. So nothing else matters. There's no quality of life ensured there, and the vast majority of life in the wild is starving to death. It's full of parasites, diseases. They've got no medicine. They're freezing to death at night. They're starving. They're running for their life from murderous animals all day, every day. And then finally they get caught and eaten alive horrifically after watching their entire family get eaten alive, right? These aren't good experiences. There is no such thing as a good experience in nature. It's pure misery and extremely desperate survival where most don't survive. And so you have to be desperate to survive because the conditions are just so cruel. Over 99% of animals born in nature will die a gruesome death, a painful death as a baby.
Well, one thing I can agree with, on that point is I just learned how elephants, how their lives end, and it's like after the sixth set of teeth, not the tusks, but like the actual teeth in the mouth. Like when the sixth set falls out, they haven't got teeth, so they just starve. Like that's actually the natural life trajectory of an elephant. The luckiest elephant gets to starve, which is just pretty messed up, really. But then the one thing I would ask, though, finally, is like, let's say there's a kid in Uganda getting abused, and that's just horrific. What has the kid in the UK done to, like, to be accountable for that? Because these are two, like, they don't intersect at all. So why should one person be denied of life simply because someone else is suffering when this other person's done nothing to contribute to the
Yeah,
suffering of.
because the thing is, all life benefits from extinction because it provides immediate safety to each and every individual. Safety from a bad life and safety from a bad death as well. Euthanasia is much nicer. But you see, you're saying, what about these children that are going to be lucky? But, they're in danger as well. So they also benefit from the safety of non-existence. But without total extinction, there's always going to be reproduction. And so, life and potential life deserves to be safe from being in danger. So as long as life exists, there's going to be danger to itself and to other life. So total extinction is the only way to provide safety and secure real safety.
Right. Well, thank you for entertaining me. Last thing I just want to say is I find your position like philosophically consistent, and that's wonderful. The last remaining hurdle for me, and I'll think about this, is how we can justify such such a unilateral use of power. But in any case, thanks
Yeah,
thanks for
the
entertaining me.
justification is that it's to defend the victims of suffering and to to help them. Basically, they are more important. Their safety is more important.
All right,
Anyway,
gotcha.
thank
Well,
you for coming
thanks,
on,
mate.
and I apologize for being rude earlier. Most people do turn out to be rude themselves and argumentative. I may have been wrong about you and a little bit too overzealous there. So thank you for the conversation. And yeah, check out our website, proextinction.com. You can read more about the movement, learn more about us, our principles, our FAQ, our manifesto. And you can also join the movement WhatsApp and Discord, which is at the bottom of the page on the website. And you can get involved, come and have a chat with me and the rest of the movement. All right, let's get our next guest on. Ape Enthusiast. Loading them in.
What's
Hello.
up? Hey, man. So I guess you can just lay out kind of your position.
Yeah, so our movement is working to abolish all suffering and all potential suffering as well. So that means total extinction, working towards a universe with no life, no possibility of life, and no possibility of suffering, because this world is too dangerous and cruel and unforgiving for life to exist in, and therefore safety from being forced into this, into a life of hell, begging for death. Safety from that is the ultimate thing that we should provide for as much life as possible. And until we have total extinction, there will always be extreme suffering and cruelty and lives of hell. So it is the only way to truly abolish all suffering, to provide 100% safety from suffering, right? There's no way to do that within existence, right? If I don't have a child, they're safe. If I do have a child, it's impossible to guarantee that they won't have a bad life.
Okay, so safety from suffering is like this value that we have an obligation to pursue. Are you saying that safety from any suffering, or like, is it a value to pursue the safety from suffering of a certain individual, like one particular individual, or is it only a value if I'm pursuing it like for all individuals, if that makes sense?
No, I'm not sure I understand your question. I mean, our movement
Okay.
is trying to provide it for as much life as possible without discrimination.
Yeah. So I guess like if say there's like a set of 100 people and they're all suffering really badly, um, and I don't have the ability to end the suffering of all the entire set, but I can end the suffering of one person. Do I have an obligation to end the suffering of that one person, even though I know that the rest of the set are going to continue to reproduce and like produce more people that are going to suffer? Like, is it still a value that I'm obtaining when I just end the suffering of one person?
Not really, because the thing is that they're just going to be replaced. So you haven't actually really achieved anything. So, people say, are you saying we should go out and start, euthanizing animals in the forest? No, because they're just going to be replaced. So you haven't actually achieved anything. Only working towards the total end of all suffering is going to be effective, right? Otherwise, suffering just continues.
Right. So I guess you don't have a problem with the individual suffering of one person. You just have a problem with the existence of suffering in its
Well,
totality.
I mean, no, we care about all sufferers, but it has to be within context as well. So, in the same way, the thing is, like, it has to be done in an organized way. So, just going out into the street and doing it, that's going to cause chaos, and it's not going to be done in a sensible or, organized way, basically.
It's practical. You have to do it in a
However,
practical way.
however, to let's put it in a moral vacuum, right? So, let's say that there's just a person on a planet, they're living their life in a little cabin or something, and there's no way that they could possibly reproduce or pose a threat to other life. I would still say yes, non-existence is better for them because safety is more important even for them. Safety from being trapped in a life of hell. We're all in danger of that, and it is better to be safe from that than to be at risk of it.
So like in an isolated scenario, it would be a good thing or like a value that you should pursue. Okay. So
Safety, basically.
yeah, so I guess the problem with that, the problem that I have with that is there's reductios where, say, there's a lost young child that has no family members, no one knows about it. You find it in the middle of the woods and you have a clear opportunity to end this person's suffering and never let them suffer again. It's like this 8-year-old girl. You have an obligation now to end their suffering. Like you have an obligation to look at the flowers to them, say that to them and end their life. And I think that's just a reductio of the view. I think that's like morally reprehensible to just.
So yeah, I mean the way that we understand the world is that it's effectively hell, and that all life here is being forced into a torture device designed by evolution. It's not even their own body, their own mind. It's literally something forced onto them by nature. A twisted mentality as well, which supports suffering and reproduction. Nature slaves, essentially. So nobody should have to be a nature slave. Nobody should have to be forced into a body that they never asked for, a mind that they never asked for, and which has been bastardized by nature and evolution. So the same humanity and animals as well are suffering blind. They are blind to their own danger and to the danger that they put other life in, which is why they reproduce and put life in danger, and why they survive and put themselves in danger. But these things aren't good. They are just caused by evolution and nature. They are directly support nature, right? But that's because it is nature. It's not their own positions. It's a position that's been forced onto them, putting themselves and others in danger.
Yeah. So, again, okay. So I guess in the situation with the 8-year-old, she might have a good life. She might have a bad life. But it is true that just if you offer right away that she'll be safe from having a bad life, but it's still possible that she could have a good life. And that's a value that you're robbing from her.
Yeah,
right?
but the thing is that the danger outweighs the benefits, essentially.
What's the argument for that?
Yeah, well, essentially having fun, a bit of fun is not worth extreme danger. It's as simple as that. Like living is optional. You don't need it. You can do without it. Whereas safety from a life of pure hell and to be trapped in that for a long time, potentially, that's something that you do need to be safe from.
Are you saying that because like the suffering is like infinitely like more like we have an obligation, like an infinitely larger obligation to avoid suffering than we do to pursue good. So therefore we should, in the case of the 8-year-old, we should pursue the prevention of suffering. Is that what you're saying?
we should prioritize, safety and prevention of suffering, but it has to be done in an organized way. Is the point that I'm trying to make? So in context. So that
Yeah,
means
that's why I
not just going out
stipulated.
and blindly killing people.
Yeah, that's why I stipulated all the things in the scenario. It's a hypothetical. Like, she doesn't have any family members. Blah 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 blah. There's no.
Yeah. So
information.
the thing
And
is,
then you're
to
committed to
answer the
saying that you
question,
should
yeah,
not.
the danger always outweighs the benefits, right? You wouldn't put yourself in, ridiculous levels of danger just to have a little bit of fun, right?
Would you say that you're in ridiculous amounts of danger right now?
Yeah, I'd say that we all are.
Okay. And would anything happen to you if, like, you were to stop being alive? Would that come back on you in some bad way?
I don't think so.
Okay. So then if you're obligated to end the suffering of the 8-year-old, then why are you not obligated to end the suffering of yourself? Boom. Second
Yeah.
reduction.
Yeah, because if I did that, then essentially it would be taking away from the fight to provide safety for others, essentially.
You
So
could say the same thing with the 8-year-old.
how?
You don't think that the 8-year-old can contribute to the pro-extinction movement?
Well, yeah, but we said in a moral vacuum, right?
Yeah, so it is possible that she could provide for the movement in her future life. Okay, it's also possible that she might not. Right?
Yeah, but we support humanity reproducing and continuing as the vehicle for ending suffering for others.
Okay, so are you obligated to end her life or not?
Well, like I say, we need more humans, right? So the more humans, the better at the minute.
So no, you're not obligated to end her life?
It would probably be a bad thing to do that.
Okay, so now you're switching your answer.
Well, I'm not. There's a difference between if it's in a moral vacuum, then yeah, I'd support the safety. But if it's not, then we have to consider the bigger picture. It's as simple as that.
I don't think you understand. I don't think you understand the hypothetical.
I think you're finished. You're done. I don't think you understand, and I think you're floundering, and you're done. All right, let's bring on the next guest. IZ, let's get him on. Okay, no, they've gone offline. Let's try Ryan Kerno.
Hi there. So before I get into the stronger arguments against, I want to start off by forming some common ground. I don't know how familiar you are with it, but I would think almost without a doubt the closest major system of thought in the world to your perspective is Buddhism. Are you familiar with this?
It's not at all. It's definitely not.
Well. So yes, in the practical aspects, it's not. But in the foundations, Buddhism agrees that suffering is intolerable, and it agrees that suffering will ultimately have to be ended through the total ending of human life. That is what it believes in its foundations. The disagreement is that, and the disagreement, this is where we get more into the logical problem with your belief. The difference is that Buddhism understands that you can, so let me just get straight to the point here. Your entire perspective is based on the idea that non-suffering is completely valuable, and we should we should unconditionally aim for non-suffering. But non-suffering only exists in the first place through suffering. You are entirely dependent on a value binary, and yet you want to get rid of the binary. Your position is completely self-contradictory.
What? So, like, not allowing a child to be abused to death, that's contradictory?
Well, so unlike your first guest, the guy Tawand, I think is something like that, I actually do believe that we can achieve a society in which no one is abused. I think that is completely possible.
And how is that going to work for the majority of life on this planet?
We can also achieve to create beneficial conditions for all life on the planet as well. As much as we can, and we can do that indefinitely. Scientific capacities can always be improved. Moreover, even if we have thousands of years where certain like animals are continuing to suffer, the great irony of your whole perspective here is that you are imposing your own human idea of what it means to live a good life onto these animals. I mean, don't you see how absurd that is?
But no, I would say that you're imposing your ideas of life onto them and saying that they should continue to suffer.
You're the one who wants to kill them. I'm not making a decision either way.
I don't want to kill animals. No, I want animals to be safe from suffering.
Okay, and that's another point of just how absurd this is when you said
So
earlier,
wanting
like you want
safety
to,
for animals is absurd.
they're not safe if they don't exist.
Why not?
I mean, come on.
Why?
Because there's nothing to protect them from if they don't exist.
How does that make sense?
Because there's nothing to protect.
Right, but if the problem is the dangers of existence, then you can protect them from that.
But existence is danger only exists as a concept through existence. Existence.
No, it doesn't. No, that's wrong.
How is that wrong?
So, even if, well, because of course it's wrong. Danger can still exist as potential.
Yes, but once you eliminate all life, there is not even such a thing as potential anymore.
Right, but think of it this way, right? If we're effectively in hell, then making sure that no life gets sent to hell is a good thing.
Well, okay, that's another thing. That is your value judgment. There is no...
It's not a value judgment. It's a scientific fact.
Okay, based on what science, my friend?
Well, it's just obvious. It's not even science.
Oh, it's obvious?
Well, I'm trying to
you
explain.
Can point to me. You can make...
Well, let me answer.
Go ahead.
Yeah, it's obvious that suffering is terrible, that many animals and humans get trapped in lives of pure hell, where they overwhelmingly would have been better off not being born. So nobody deserves that, and we should provide safety from that ultimate harm.
They can also have their lives be made better by just literally making them better. Like not killing them and then making their lives better.
That's not possible. Like you can't provide 100% safety from suffering without non-existence.
100% suffering can be strived for, and that would be the preference of every being
but
on the planet.
But if you're striving for 100% safety, which you should, then extinction is the only way to do that.
So again, 100. Look.
You don't like the idea of 100% safety for children. You want them to be in danger. I get it.
I'm not a fan of.
I get it. Most people do want.
Hold on, because you're sliding into rhetorical. You're sliding into your rhetorical points to try and make me sound this or that. Let's try and keep this into a consistent, logical oriented thing. So, because look, as far as I'm concerned, I'm not invested in this because, as far as I'm concerned, you're mentally ill, and there's a reason why
you don't even care to have a proper conversation. Got it. All right, let's bring on the next guest, Oracle. Got it. Hello, how's it going?
Hey, how's it going, man?
Good.
You know what's funny? I've posted this idea before. Me, myself, personally, on my page, I've posted a similar idea to yours, which is why I think this is hilarious. Because it makes sense if you put it in the perspective that you put it in. But at the same time, you're choosing right now to continue using oxygen as a result to live. So in reality, you're not even including yourself within this idea. In reality, if this was true for you, the idea that suffering, the best way to end suffering is by removing all of us altogether, including animals and children, and that would include you. But right now, you're breathing. You're not choosing to end suffering for yourself.
So you're thinking about this from the antinatalist position, which is that if we just wish and hope for extinction, it will happen, and we don't actually have to take any action, right? So that's illogical, irrational. Humanity will never go extinct without active solutions. Taking ourselves out and then hoping it will happen, that's ridiculous. And that supports more suffering. So we need an active solution against suffering. Passively just saying, peace out, good luck with it. That's never going to be helpful to the victims.
Well, yeah, clearly that's never going to be helpful. But that's still, but my point still remains. Why are you breathing right now?
Yeah, so that we can do activism to
stop breathing.
Okay, all right, thanks, Oracle. Yeah, so without activists growing the movement to end all suffering, suffering will never end, right? It's just so crazy that people don't understand that. You need active solutions, you need a movement to carry it out. If you don't have a movement, it's never going to happen. It should be super obvious, and yet this, a toddler could do that logic, and yet these people can't. Okay, so let's bring on another guest. QWERTY up.
How we doing?
Good, good.
Good. I know we had talked like maybe last week or something about this, right? And it was kind of ended on like an agree to disagree. But I want to just for a moment here, pick your brain. I want to assume that you're right. Okay. What would be the method of extinction?
Euthanasia.
Euthanasia. Over like what period of time? Like how long would this take?
It's hard to say, right? The thing is, to have total extinction for animals on Earth, we need to remove our dependence on animals at the same time. And then obviously, that's going to be difficult, developing technology that can completely remove our reliance on animals. And then also figuring out what the best way to do it is to phase it out. Should we start with which species and how are we going to do it? How fast should we do it? If you take out an entire species, could have a really bad effect. So you might have to do 10% each year or something while doing 5% of another species. So it's going to be really complicated. And AI is probably going to be the way that we, automate this difficult process because there's so many moving parts.
So if we're talking suffering, and I continuously hear your point being, children are suffering and dying every day, which is true. But if you cause an extinction level event, no matter how long it's going to be, no matter how long the timeline is, right? You're still going to cause a collapse, not only in society but in nature, and that's going to cause more suffering that wouldn't have happened if we just sought to find another solution. So
No. So that's not true. That's not true. The thing is, extinction won't really cause much pain and suffering. The individuals that get euthanized will benefit from immediate safety from suffering and safety from a horrible death as well, and safety from reproducing. And the thing is that unless we do this, it's going to continue for billions of years. And there is no other solution, especially for animal suffering. What are you going to do? Cure every last disease for every last animal, prevent every last injury? You'd really have to be messing with the ecosystem properly at that point. We're saying just get rid of it, okay? But to try and engineer the ecosystem with all these moving parts to somehow, the thing is, like, you change one thing and you change the entire ecosystem. People say stupid things like just remove the pain receptors from all animals, right? How is that going to affect the ecosystem, guys? It's going to be just ridiculous. It's not going to work. So the thing is, again, there's no other way to prevent animal suffering. Extinction is the only way.
So, well, okay, but I just implore you to think for a second.
Yeah.
We're talking about using AI for this, right? Yeah. And AI is rapidly advancing every day. Multiple times a day, there's a breakthrough with AI, right? So why could, like you said, it's unobtainable to find a cure for everything, to find all of these solutions, right? If AI is rapidly evolving every day, why can't we use AI to correct suffering in a way that does not require everything in existence to cease to, every living thing in existence to cease to live? Like, that doesn't make sense to me, like how we have to go to extinction.
The thing is that without extinction, to provide safety to a life form, you need magic, basically. There's no way to provide 100% safety, 100% guarantee within existence. It's just not possible, and so it's not ethical, because without 100% safety, you're saying that life, it should be in danger, and that those that suffer as a result deserve to suffer. So they don't.
But I didn't mean to cut you off, but I just gotta spin back to what you said. Like, are you saying that, like, death is ethical?
Well, the thing is, like, most of the sufferers that we want to help are in the future and don't exist yet. So yeah, we should cause total euthanasia for all animals and eventually humans as well. But the existing living population is a tiny minority.
I have to push back, because I think that death itself as a concept isn't ethical. The right to choose whether or not you you live or die is ethical.
So
And I think
do you think death is a bad thing?
it's natural. It's not a good nor bad thing. That's
Okay.
my belief.
Okay. So what's the problem?
So taking away the right to choose for living things to choose whether or not to die, that is unethical.
But nobody gets that choice anyway. Nature has done that. Nature has unethically forced life to exist. That's unethical. And then unethically forces them to be killed in a horrible way. So if you care about people dying and animals dying horrifically, then you should support extinction because it prevents that from happening.
Extinction is different from natural selection. Like that's the difference, is that you're forcing an entire population of a planet to die.
But, we need to
Without a
think about the
choice.
individuals, not just, generalizations. The thing is, if you generalize and say, well, what about the population? Then you're ignoring the quality of life for that population. You're ignoring the quality of life for the individuals. So that's what people unfortunately do. They say that we should blindly continue the species no matter who gets hurt and how badly.
But okay, let me just throw a scenario at you real quick, right? So let's say that you're on this mission to, liberate a human trafficking camp, and you find a little child that's had things done to him or her that are unfathomable, right? The level of suffering was great, right? You give that little child an option, saying, would you rather live and potentially encounter more suffering, or would you rather end it all now and there's no chance for suffering?
But
What do you think
the thing is, it's wrong to put that onto people, right? So firstly, it's wrong to make them make that decision. And secondly, they're not capable of making the decision properly anyway, because essentially their brains are not capable of thinking about suffering in a responsible way for themselves or for others. So we shouldn't leave that decision up to something that's ultimately going to be irresponsible.
But okay, so then flip that to an adult. You find somebody that's been human trafficked majority of their life, and you finally liberate them, right? You come and save them, and then you give them that option. Would you rather cease to exist?
But that's a different thing. You're not talking about extinctionism, right? You're talking about some random, cop that is a serial killer as well, basically.
But extinctionism is removing that choice.
Well, it's removing it's removing the choice, and most people make the wrong choice anyway. So nature has made it so that people can't make the right choice on that, because if they were able to, then it would go against reproduction and the species. So the ability to make correct choices on these things has been removed. So we can't leave it up to them because they can't make the right choice.
I guess I mean, so what about the people that are, and I think you and I are included in this. I think the majority of people are included in this, right? That are 100% against the torturing of innocents, specifically children, right? We would, and it's not even if we were able to, right? Like, if you go out and donate to some anti-trafficking organization, you're doing a part trying to suppress, as much as you can.
But the problem with it is that you're not working towards abolishing it. So if I go out into a forest and save an animal, I'm doing nothing to stop it from happening again, which it will. So it's like, instead of turning the tap off, you're trying to catch the water. Just turn the tap off.
Yeah, I can't wrap my head around.
Yeah, the water's going to keep coming. The water is going to keep coming. You think you've caught a little bit of water and saved it, but guess what? There's going to be infinite more water coming until you turn that tap off. So that's the only right thing to do, and that's what we're doing. We're turning off the suffering and cruelty tap, whereas people are telling us to not do that.
So somebody who says that it's wrong, and they're orienting their life to combat suffering, abolishing suffering, right? Like, that's because I guess like if we're talking animals, right? What's suffering? What's suffering to a deer? What would you say is suffering to a deer?
There's lots of different types of suffering, right? So suffering is going to be pain, it's going to be discomfort, but that can be all types of extreme, right? So, like, being eaten alive as a baby, let's say you're born as a deer, you're born with like chronic pain, you're born with some other diseases. As a baby, you're starving, you're full of parasites, you're also freezing and starving to death. You watch your entire family get eaten in front of you, eaten alive while they're screaming in pain. And then it happens to you as well. You get eaten alive slowly, your eyes are being ripped out while you're still watching, your intestines are falling out, you're screaming in the most agony possible. I would say that counts as suffering.
So, if we're just talking about that's nature, right?
Yeah.
There's nowhere in the universe that nature that you would be breaking the laws of nature, right? Like that's what it is.
Nature didn't make any laws.
That's how it is. That's just reality. Is that there's prey and there's predators, right?
Yeah, but that doesn't mean it's a good thing. But I would say that it's people that are unable to make judgments on these, like you're suggesting, oh, that's just life. It comes from a lack of intelligence, right? So you're not able to think about it properly, and so you say, well, that's just the way it is. But that's directly from a lack of being able to think about it properly, and so that's why you're giving such a weak answer.
I guess I don't know why you think it's weak. There's no other way that it could be.
Because we should decide if it's good or bad, not if it's there just because it's there.
So even if it is good or it is bad, you still can't change the inevitable.
Why?
There will always be you like to survive, right? We're biological life. You need sustenance, right? There will always be that. So
Why?
I guess
why will there always be that? If we cause total extinction, then no, there won't be.
there would be nothing. You're and then who's to say
suffering,
right?
Exactly. There would be no more suffering.
So let's go. Let's continue, right? I'll just for the sake of this conversation, I'll agree with you. Let's continue on. So let's say that your plan works, and we manage to snuff out all life on the planet.
Yeah.
Where did the very first life form originate? What did that come from?
So yeah, we've done research on this, especially because we're looking into doing it for other planets. And yeah, life develops usually as a result of the sun. Essentially, the energy from the sun has to get dispersed, and complex patterns form as a part of this dispersal, and they can become extraordinarily complex to the point where they start actually reproducing, and eventually, life comes out of it.
So then, let's say that your plan works. Who's to say that life won't reemerge? It's inevitable.
Yeah, well, the majority of our plan is about prevention of life. So, that's not an afterthought. That's not something we've never thought about. That is the majority of what we need to do.
So I guess I'm really trying to. I want to let you know I'm being genuine here. I'm trying to see it from your perspective, but I can't get my head around the angle of saying that saying that extinction equals peace, right?
Yeah.
But peace is a construct that we benefit from. We that's
just your opinion, bro.
What's peace to a rock? It's indifferent, right?
Yeah, that's what makes your opinion, bro.
But that's what makes life life.
That's just your opinion. And peace definitely does exist where there's no, action, no life, no combat, no conflict, no suffering.
How would that be peace?
If we can agree that rocks still exist regardless of life existing, then we can agree that peace can exist regardless of life existing.
but there's still, right, like the universe is a very violent place.
Right.
So
what?
there still wouldn't be peace if a ginormous asteroid smacked into Mars, right? There's no life on Mars. Mars is destroyed. That's not peace. Where we find peace is absolving suffering.
Okay, but there basically would be peace because there'd be no life fighting or suffering, right? So it doesn't matter if a rock hits another rock, right? It's still peace. You know, if two pebbles rub up against each other on the beach, we don't say, bloody hell, World War III is broken out.
Okay. Yeah. I'll let someone else get up here. I still have more to ponder, but I guess again we'll agree to disagree. I'll probably join back up some other time.
Well, just in case we missed it, yeah, we want to provide prevention of life for the universe. So, you know, there's going to be a lot more suffering out there than there is on Earth because we're just one planet. Yet, with, you know, robots and technology, we could probably help lots of planets. Potentially all of them. You know, we won't know until we try. So we need to do the research to find out what the limit is. You know, if we can't go past our solar system, so be it. If we can't go past our galaxy, so be it. But we should try because there are sufferers that need our help and are relying on us to try. So, you know, it's as simple as that. It's about doing as much as we can to provide as much safety from existence and therefore suffering for as much life and potential life as possible. So if we can only do Earth, then we'll do Earth. But if it is possible and seems practical to look into doing beyond Earth, then we should, right? And actually, we should be in favor of that more so than we are against it, because there's going to be, again, many more victims out in the universe, much more suffering out there than there is on Earth. So on that basis alone, we have to think about it, we have to consider it, we have to try it. All right, let's bring on some new guests. Banango. Hello.
Hey, how you doing?
Good, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, I was just hearing, you have a point. I get what you're saying, and so I was just gonna offer, why don't you just kill yourself, you know?
Yeah, because if I did that, then I wouldn't be able to do activism to grow the movement until we have enough people to make it possible to change the world and carry out extinction. So it's an active solution.
Just lead by example. Lead by example.
But that wouldn't work.
Of course it would.
How?
Because your spirit would go to the other plane. You know what I mean?
Really?
You can help, but you can help more if your spirit was expanded out in the universe than just collectively energized into your body.
Wow. Well, then why haven't you done it? Not that I'm suggesting that you do. In fact, we are against suicide. We're against self-harm. But yeah, the guest, you know, he's giving advice about this magical journey you can go on, but not taking it himself. Now, you shouldn't take it. There is no magical journey. Suffering will always exist until total extinction. All right, let's bring on our next guest, Ibode. We've had them on before.
Yeah, total nigger extinction, total Jewish extinction, total.
No. Let's ban that person and make sure they never come back ever again. Done. All right, banned. You're done. You're finished. Right, next, let's get somebody else on. We've got quite a healthy queue at the moment, which is really nice. So bringing on our next guest now. Hello. Are you in the bathroom? Can you talk? All right, I'm going to guess not. Moving on, we have more people in the queue. The queue is looking really good today. Let's get on Shinan Abi.
Total nigger extinction, total Jewish extinction.
Oh, man. What is wrong with these people? All right. Let's bring on another person. Perhaps not a racist this time, if we're lucky. Okay, no, they've left. All right, we're going with our last chance, our last hope. If this person doesn't join, then we're going to have to get desperate. They didn't join. We've now got 3 trolls in the queue, so unless somebody joins with good thoughts, good questions, good conversation, then we'll have to bring a patrol. All right, we've been saved. We have been saved, unless it's the other troll again. Hello.
Hello, I'm not a troll.
Oh, thank God. How's it going?
It's going. How are you?
Good, thank you.
Okay, so you in your prompt you say forcefully, and then
Yep.
how would you go about that, or your group would go about that?
Yeah, so we need to grow the movement until we have enough people to change the world, take over the world, make it anti-suffering. And then for animals, we would euthanize all of them while removing our dependency and reliance on animals to make it possible to get rid of them. And then, so we would do that with euthanasia. We wouldn't use sterilization because sterilization still puts the animal in danger. So euthanasia and extinction provides immediate safety from suffering and safety from a worse death that you would otherwise have had as well. So it's actually a really good thing for all life. And we would do the same thing for humanity as well, although that would be at least a few hundred years, if not thousands of years in the future, after they've carried out extinction for other life. So humanity has to go last as the only ones that can do it for others.
Well, so I guess my only contention with that, the order of that, is that there are wealthy elitists that are in charge right now, and it's going to be kind of difficult to navigate. Basically, they would have to go first because you do like understand like they're the reason why there's so much suffering in the world, right? So I guess like that
Well,
to me
no,
would be like
they're not actually. The vast majority of suffering is in nature and has nothing to do with humans. So, we wouldn't be doing sort of group by group genocide like you're suggesting either. We're doing peaceful activism to sort of change the world, essentially. We're not doing terrorism or, violent protest or assassinating people, nothing like that. We don't need to. We can do better than that.
yeah, no, I even not even suggesting that, right? Like the whole like, just doing it very like the peaceful way, right? It's
But
just the
also, we
fact
wouldn't do it
of
one group at a time. It would, that would be discrimination, basically. So if we get to a point where we can do extinction and we have the power to do it, then we're not going to need to focus on one group or another. We can just do it based on the suffering and the safety.
but wouldn't you have to do it by groups? Like you would have to be discriminatory to a certain extent because of the
Right.
fact that
Right.
there are people like some of your previous guests that they were not thrilled by the idea, right? So there's going to be your group is going to be met by a lot of resistance that's going to be violent. So how are y'all planning on countering that to be able to continue the movement? Because these people, like, they do
Yeah.
need to be taken out, right? Like, I mean, like all suffering, right? Like, I understand like the premise of like all suffering, right? And I'm not trying to say like, oh, like this group like deserves it more than the other. What I'm saying is that
Yeah.
there are certain groups that are more
Well,
violent and there to be more of a challenge to others.
but with the the Civil War in America, they fought a war, right? So there were people against ending slavery, and they had to take power and change the system forcefully. So that's basically the same thing that we're suggesting. Now, it might not come to force. We might be able to just do it peacefully and democratically, but we are putting all options on the table and fighting for all of them as well, because that's what the victims need.
Okay. My contention with starting with the animal kingdom first, even though there is more suffering there first. I'll take your word for it, just for the get the conversation going. There's more suffering there first. Is that um the animal kingdom, the other animal species, they're more important to the balance of the ecosystem than humans are. So if we start taking out, I don't know if you guys are planning out taking like the animals that are suffering the most, or how you're going to go about like which animals you're going to pick?
It would be done
to go-
based on the ecosystem and how to do it in a way that doesn't involve ecosystem collapse. So we would need to remove our dependency on animals. So that's going to be a big job, a very big job. But we should do it. You know, we have all the time in the world to do it, so we should.
Okay, I just like that's my biggest thing is that even with that, it's just the whole the collapsing in the ecosystem, because even though
Yeah,
even
yeah,
if
yeah.
like everybody, if half the population went like vegan tomorrow, right? There's still other animals that are dependent on other animals, right? Like everything is dependent on honeybees, right? So it's like just making sure that in the process of this that never mind us, it's the collapse of everything else.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But like I say, we've got billions of years to do it. And by then we'll probably have AI doing it for us anyway. If you've ever seen Black Mirror, then they had robots for bees and for other things like that. I think it's more than possible, and we should definitely try and do it.
Okay, and my one last thing is that it's my last contingent with y'all's argument is that, let's say like it was successful, like tomorrow everything's just stink. It's only a temporary solution, because life is eventually going to return back. Even when there's nothing here, like plant life is going to be the first thing returned back, and then that's eventually going to evolve into like insects, and it's just like starting it all over again. I don't know if humans are going to come back or if the same type of animals.
Yeah,
but
well, the majority of our mission is about preventing life from coming about. So yeah, that's going to be the hardest part, the biggest part. I think reasonably, relatively speaking, preventing animal extinction will be easy. Preventing animals from developing will be harder, but that's what we have to do. And we should do that for as much of the universe as possible as well. Even if there are planets that don't have life today, they could have it tomorrow. So even if it just means sending out robots to do this mission for us, we can do it. We can try, right? We should try. There's loads of potential suffering out there that we can do something about. And yeah, again, most of it is going to be prevention and scientifically understanding how life develops and how to prevent it from developing.
Are you worried about the AIs will only do, without becoming self-aware, they're only going to do what the programmers tell them to do? Are you have any concern about the idealism of the programmers in charge of the AIs in this?
Yeah, I've done a series about how immoral ChatGPT is on my channel. If you go to my videos and scroll down far enough, you'll see it. So AI has the same morality as humanity right now, which is a bad morality, right? It allows for infinite suffering, doesn't value children being abused at all, doesn't care about them. So yeah, AI is really bad right now, and programming it to do the right thing is going to be really important. Hopefully we'll get to a point where AI doesn't need to be told what to think and can actually think for itself, in which case it probably would decide that, yeah, safety from a life of hell outweighs access to, a little bit of fun with that massive risk attached.
Absolutely. Also, I would also imagine that y'all would want to unalive any of the continuous space missions about trying to colonize the moon and Mars, because humans are trying to move off of Earth, and so y'all are very anti that as well, right? Correct?
It has to be total extinction, otherwise it doesn't matter. It doesn't help, right? Without total extinction, life will continue for billions of years, suffering will continue, forever, basically. So without that totality, it doesn't matter. Now, the thing is, even if we don't cause total extinction, it's still better than nothing. So even if animals did develop on Earth again, it would still be better to prevent all of that suffering in the meantime. So, if it took 1 billion years for it to come back, that's still a lot of suffering that we prevented. And even if we could only help, a few planets out there to not have life, again, that's still massive amounts of suffering, insane amount of time of suffering that's being prevented.
I understand, because I mean, there's no way to actually prevent suffering. If you have chronic migraines, that's considered suffering, right? So it's like, unless you have a cure to that suffering, it would really just be a treatment, right? Or just like just a
Band-Aid.
temporary.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, well, thank you. Those were the questions I had for now. I'm just gonna keep listening.
Yeah, thank you for coming on. Consider reading our website. You know, you can read our manifesto, our FAQ. You can join our Discord or our WhatsApp group. The links are at the bottom of the page on the website. There's a clickable link to the website on my TikTok profile, so you don't even have to type it in. You can just click on it. Cool. So yeah, moving on. One thing I want to just say again is that it's not just about not having life exist, it's about the ultimate prevention. So it's about ultimate safety. You know, without that prevention, we're not giving 100% safety for 100% of life. That's the ideal that we're working towards. You know, the ultimate goal, again, we might not get there, but even if we get halfway, it's still a really good thing. But the ultimate goal is basically a universe with no life, no possibility of life, no possibility of suffering. As long as life exists, some life exists somewhere, that raises the danger level for all life, right? It only takes a few to have billions of years of suffering, and it only takes one to have some suffering as well. And again, most life is blind to the danger that it's actually in, because doing that on purpose was nature's only way to make us want to survive and want to put our children into danger as well. So nature is about tricking life, blinding life into wanting to exist despite being in absurd levels of danger, to not think about the danger, and to then put children into that danger where most of them will face the danger and die. So people are just as blind to their own danger as they are to the danger that they're putting others into. You know what I mean? Think about it, right? Again, antinatalism, an extremely illogical position that says, you know, the world is too bad to put my own kid into, but I don't care about animals and I don't care about anyone else's kids, just my kid. And I also don't care about myself being in danger. Antinatalism is like the worst form of extinctionism possible. It will never work. It doesn't make any sense. But yes, 100% safety from suffering and from being forced to exist into a bad life and unsafe conditions, that is what we're working towards, 100% safety. Now, as long as some life exists, that 100% safety goes down, because that life could force you to exist, it could suffer itself, anything could happen. You know, once you start having life run around the universe, you know, it creates extreme dangers and risks of lots of things. So having no life is the safest thing for all, okay? If you have some life running around, it could definitely create some suffering, start abusing some kids. You know, even if, like, there's just one life form and it can't reproduce, you know, life could develop from the body, from the biomatter, right? I mean, that's how life comes about in the first place, right? It's got to have something to develop within. So that biomatter, your body, that could potentially kickstart, you know, life developing and evolution again. There's basically no point having life running around. It just poses an extra risk to itself and to others. So extinctionism is about understanding that life has effectively zero value when you actually understand it properly. Life really isn't all that, and it's only by making us illogically obsessed with it and continuing it that nature was able to make us stupid enough to survive and to reproduce and force our kids into danger. So it's not a logical thing, it's not a good thing at all. It's literally a torture device designed by nature that will torture us into reproducing. And that's it. Like, there doesn't need to be any more than that, because reproduction is all that matters in a system where reproduction decides what exists and what doesn't exist. So we have nature slaves, basically, designed by reproduction to have more reproduction. Doesn't care about your quality of life, and it basically understands that the vast majority of life will get tortured to death. And in fact, that suffering is there on purpose. It's to make you follow the orders of your master, which is nature. And it will whip you if you don't. If you don't try and survive, it'll whip you. If you don't try and have kids, you'll also be, punished by your hormones or your society. So it's about like literally forcing life, enslaving life into the worst thing possible. Again, no logic went into this, no thinking went into this. This is just what happens in nature. But that means it's the ultimate bad thing. The ultimate lack of thought went into it. So, in fact, it's the opposite. The sort of ultimate suppression of thought went into reproduction. So, life, reproduction, evolution, it's about preventing life from rationally thinking about suffering. And quite a few other things as well, but suffering is one of the big ones. So it prevents life from caring about its own suffering, the own risk that it's in, the danger that it's in, and about caring about the conditions that it's putting its own children into. So it's literally like an evil thing. It's upside down as could possibly be. It's the worst thing possible. And yet people glorify it because that glorification is part of the, mind tricks, the brainwashing that nature and evolution has done to you. So it's enslaved humanity, enslaved all of life into just creating more life. Not because it's evil, not because it's a bad phenomenon. It's because it's natural. It doesn't know what it's doing. It doesn't have a thought process. It's like if you set up some dominoes and they fall in a certain way, you wouldn't be angry at them for falling in a way that spelt out "fuck you." You'd be like, "Wow, that's crazy." But that is what's happening in nature, basically. And you're born into a life that says "fuck you." We don't care about your life. Go and reproduce. So it all comes down to reproduction, and that completely ignores quality of life. Reproduction in the system that we live in takes priority over quality of life, happiness, safety, morality, anything. It basically takes priority over everything, and it warps everything in its own benefit. And that's because, reproduction is the main force of nature, the most powerful force of nature, basically. It's crazy what it can do, and most people are, the majority of the population is going to be from the ones that are so stupid that they reproduce even more, right? So if you can trick a life form into being so incredibly dumb that it puts out loads of kids, most of which get tortured to death, then that's more successful, and the ones that do survive will reinforce that cycle. So most people born, as we all know, are very stupid, and that's because the more stupid, the more kids. So the fringe is always going to be the more intelligent because they're sort of being kicked out of the gene pool, essentially. So that's why, we have an upside down world where the majority opinion is completely crazy and supports child abuse, because nature and reproduction relies on child abuse. So when we're talking to these people that are coming out with these crazy opinions and these crazy hot takes about how child abuse is good for children, it's like we're talking to nature itself, okay? So they're basically parroting talking points of nature, which is survival must go on, reproduction is a good thing, existence must carry on, right? And then ignores all of the actual important things, the logical things to care about, which is, are children being abused? Is their life okay? Is the quality of life okay? Is it morally acceptable to force the majority of life into cruelty so that some can have fun? All of these things that we should be thinking about, they don't think about. And so, should we consider those who are worst off in this world? No, they can't do it. They're prevented by nature from doing it. All right, let's get some more people on. Let's try a previous guest who didn't connect. Hello.
Yeah, what's up?
Good, how are you?
Good. Um, so I guess one of the questions I had a couple questions. We talked before, but one of my first questions was like what level of suffering is too much? Like you mentioned like discomfort, obviously like murder and stuff, but like is like slight discomfort fine with you, or is that still too much suffering? It has to go. Like if we could limit all suffering to just discomfort, right? Would that be okay with you, or like that has to go too?
I'd say that the standard is like a good life, a life worth living. Anything less than that's not really fair.
So like if we could limit it down to that, you would be fine with that.
Thing is, you're saying like, oh, what if there's just a little bit of suffering? But if someone's whole life is just
No,
pure.
no, I'm not saying a little bit of suffering. I'm saying if we can limit it to just discomfort in life. Like there's no crazy suffering going on in anybody's life. Like at the worst we're having like discomfort in our life. Would that be okay with you, or is that still too much suffering?
But again, as long as their life was like they were happy overall, and just every now and then you stub your toe, then that would probably be fine. But the thing is that they'd have to be 100% guarantee that they're going to be okay, right? If there's any chance that it's going to go wrong, even the smallest chance, then it's dangerous and it's not acceptable. So basically, if life could exist in heaven, would we support it? Basically, well, yeah, probably, yeah.
Okay. But I guess with that caveat of like you saying that there being any chance, well then I guess there's no chance then, right? Because there's like an infinite possibility of like, let's say it could be zero to like the 30th one or whatever, how it goes. Like it's super small. But you're saying like because it's not zero, it's the cost is the potential cost is too great.
That's right, yeah.
Okay. I guess my another question was let's say like we're trying to expand to other planets and continue our little
Yeah.
extinction whatever, but like let's say like a superior alien species we come across, right? And they're more intelligent than us, like they're just us but better, right? They're just more smarter whatever, and they're like actually guys, we got this, we're doing this already, you guys chill out, we're going to eliminate you right now. Would you be fine with that, with us being next up on the chopping block?
That's a really great question. So, yeah, we would have to do as much as we could to be certain that they were actually doing the right thing, and that there was no chance that they were not going to do the job as good as us. So we would just have to hold it to the highest standards. But yeah, I guess if everything seemed above board, yeah, we'd be on board with it.
Okay, all right, that was all.
Now, if we could sort of help and join the mission, then that would probably be ideal. But it's a really great question, actually, and I don't think anyone's ever asked that before. So, really appreciate the question. Yeah, if some alien extinctionists came up and said, "Oh, hey guys, nice little planet you've got there. You don't mind going extinct, do you? But we're already doing the mission. You don't need to worry about it anymore." If we were sufficiently, convinced that, okay, it's real, they're not, making this up, there's no deception going on, and that there's no vulnerabilities in their species or their plan or something like that, yeah, we would say, okay, that's it, do it, make us extinct, wipe out the planet, whatever. Because that would still prevent all of our suffering, and not just ours, but all of the suffering on our planet, all of the children, humans, animals that need that safety. So yeah, but yeah, if there was any sort of doubt that like, oh, these guys seem kind of suspicious, then I guess we'd have to try and fight against it. Yeah, but yeah, I love the idea. If we thought we could trust the aliens, then yes, we'd be like, bring it on. All right, let's see the queue. Let's try Archangel. Bringing them on. Hello.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
Good, good. Can you think yourself to a flat line?
What do you mean?
So If suffering really is such a big issue, why do we not have the capacity to simply think ourselves to a flat line by thought alone, by pure will?
Yeah. So nature requires us to suffer so that we basically carry out its commands. So we weren't really given that option.
Yeah, but then you're only suffering if you're suffering. If you're not actually suffering, then there's nothing wrong with that design.
Someone's asking, how do I join the movement? Check out our website. At the bottom of the page, you've got links to our Discord and WhatsApp. So the thing is, like you're saying about how basically you're suggesting Buddhism, right? But, the vast majority of the population on this planet, animals, are never going to be able to meditate. And even if they could, it's not going to help them while they're being eaten alive, right? So it's not a real solution. And, human babies and children, they can't benefit from it either. So this narrows down to like the tiniest population on the planet maybe being able to benefit from this. And then even then, if they're getting tortured, are they really going to be able to meditate their way out of it? Probably not. So it's not a real solution for anyone.
Yeah, but I mean, our biology is literally designed to keep us going whether we like it or not.
Correct.
So that's because the medulla oblongata, which is your brainstem, a part in your brainstem, this part enforces this without exception, which is proving that survival is hardwired. It's the opposite of what you're saying. You're saying that the hardwired portion of survival is actually a bad thing. You're saying because that portion is allowing us to survive, which then means that we still have the capacity to suffer. But the reason that we actually unalive is precisely so that we don't suffer. Unalivement is the answer to end suffering when you are alive. But when you are alive, you cannot just think yourself to a flat line, which means that it's not by design, it's not programmed like that.
Okay, I think we're done with that, guest. Let's just move on. All right, bringing up BT to the stage now. BT, let's get you on. Hello.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. So I wanted to ask you if the situation was that the suffering, collective suffering that is emitted from Earth and the universe, what if that is used as a fuel to prevent a greater, much worse suffering on some other realm? In that case, extinction would lose its purpose, right?
Yeah, but there's no evidence of that, right? So, I mean, I could make up any crazy hypothetical. Like, what if, there's Santa is right behind you right now? Are you going to turn around and look? Or are you just going to say, that sounds like nonsense, I'm not going to turn around and look?
Yeah, but don't we have to survive long enough to first understand what existence is before making...
No. So we already know enough about existence, and we have a pretty good understanding, and we've got lots of experience, lots of history with existence. So, in hundreds of millions of years, there's never been any evidence of ghosts or, paranormal activity. And the thing is that the reason that the burden of proof is on the person making the claim is because someone else could come along and make the opposite claim. So there's no way to actually base your life around baseless claims without evidence, because it would just be a never-ending cycle of being careful of random ideas that have just popped into your head, basically.
But don't you think existence has some purpose? I mean, it's clearly designed, right, by someone or something. So do you think
I
it's
don't
without
know
a
if it's
purpose?
necessarily designed. I think most people, we develop in the environment that we're in, and then we say, oh, look, the environment's perfect for us. So most people get it the wrong way around.
All right, okay. Thank you.
Thank you for coming on, BT. Appreciate your time. Okay, let's move on to someone else in the queue. The queue is looking a bit weak, and I know that's going to offend the people that are in the queue. But I think we need more people. to press that button so I can bring you up on the stage. Let's get some more conversations going. In the meantime, we can consider the queue. Let's try bringing on Matt. If he's even in the queue. Yeah, you get a lot of ghosts in the queue. That's the only time the ghosts are actually real. Oh, Matt, you are here. How you doing?
Hello. I saw a comment on one of your videos, and I was just wondering if you could answer it. And it was why suffering ought not to be, because a lot of people wouldn't choose to just end their life, even though they suffer. And I'm sure, like, you go on these lives, like, you'd probably rather not. You'd probably just get your movement done, but you're choosing to suffer. So why is it inherently bad, and why ought it not to be?
So suffering is inherently bad for those that experience it, right? And that's why it's a bad thing.
So right now, you are suffering on a live, arguing to people to achieve your movement. No, like when people go to work, they suffer to get paid. So that is good suffering. And I'm sure if you ask them, would you rather not suffer? A lot of people wouldn't choose to. They would choose to suffer.
But like nobody would choose to be like abused to death, though, right?
No. So, but you're not saying only abused to death for animals. You're calling for total extinction, no?
Yeah, this is the only way to provide safety for the victims.
Yeah, but if you're reducing suffering, why would you kill a lot of people who didn't want to suffer?
Because without total extinction, you can't have the total end of suffering, right? They could go on to reproduce, they could cause suffering to others or to themselves.
So if there was a world with 1,000 people and everyone else was happy but one person was suffering, you would still end that world?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I guess that's just like a different sort of perspective then. Fair enough. Yeah.
Yeah, so we see, pleasures and survival as effectively having zero value in this world in an operational and conditional sense, meaning that it's something that you can go without, right? We don't need life to exist. We don't need to have fun. We don't need to survive.
Well, yeah, what if there were aliens? What
Sorry?
if there were aliens that could suffer? And what if there was a planet of 1 billion aliens who are all suffering right now and we didn't know because we haven't explored the world? Then if we all died, we'd just be...
That's what our mission is. That's what our movement advocates for. Doing as much extinction as we can. So starting with animals on Earth.
Wait, so why don't you do that? Do you just go around killing animals? Because surely every animal without
because the
suffering
thing
is
is, it has to be done in an organized way and a way supporting total extinction. If you just go to a forest and take out some animals, they're just going to come back and reproduce, right? So you haven't actually achieved anything.
But I guess so, but like, yeah, I don't know, but you're still ending suffering at a small scale. Or do you think your work would be better off
bad
alive?
use of time, though.
I mean, I guess for you, it would probably be better that you stay alive because you're like advertising the movement. But surely for most people, it would be the most impact they could make, the most suffering they could reduce, unless they're like evangelizing your movement is to go out and kill other people themselves, surely.
Well, no, because that would just be ridiculous, wouldn't it? And
but
the
what?
thing
It's reducing suffering. It's ending their suffering.
Well,
and isn't that what you're saying with the force?
You have to look at it in the bigger picture, right? So within the bigger picture, the more humans we have, the better at the minute, because we are the vehicle for preventing suffering for other species, right? We can't get to those other planets. We can't get to the animals on Earth if we don't exist, right? So going around having
so your goal
humans
one
attack
is
each
to
other.
explore the cosmos first and explore explore the universe, I guess.
Yeah, that's what we support doing.
So at what point, because it's impossible to explore the whole universe, at what point would you be happy and say, right, we can extinct
I actually
the
don't know
humans
that
now?
it's impossible. We've only really just begun our adventure into science and technology. So I don't think we should limit ourselves like that.
Okay, I mean, I guess fair enough then. So that's your first thing is to explore the universe, find all the aliens and kill all the aliens.
I mean, no, not really. It's more about, researching it, doing it scientifically, not just flying around in a ship and looking out the window and seeing if we can spot anything. So we would probably go to the planets that seem to be habitable first. We'd probably be doing AI and robots doing all this anyway.
So
You having an asthma attack, man?
No, it's just funny that you're gonna go, like, explore the world, yeah, and just extinct every single animal. Like, would you want to even extinct the bacteria? Because bacteria can suffer, can't they, by dying and that?
Well, it's about providing safety for children, Matt, which is something you find funny and trivial, but it is actually an important thing. So yeah, if you try and get rid of all the bacteria, then you reduce the chance of them evolving into some
So, do you think
children that
it's
can
more
suffer.
achievable to explore the entire known universe and extinct every single species, or to maybe advocate for children's rights? Which one do you think would have a greater impact, and which one do you think is more plausible?
I think the former is more plausible
It's
because
more plausible to explore the entire universe and kill every single species than fix.
well, that's not what we're advocating for. We're simply advocating for doing as much as possible, Matt. You're trying to,
Well, no, I asked
make
you
a
when, and you said
cartoon
we
of
would
it.
explore all the planets. So
You're trying to cartoonify it, Matt, but it's just about doing as much as we can.
well, no, because you're talking about these mass forced euthanasia. That is obviously not going to ever happen.
Well, you don't know that.
But you didn't answer my question.
The movement for
Why is it
ending all
more
suffering isn't going to go away, Matt, as much as you'd like it to. The support for the abolition of all suffering is only going to increase with time. Now, that might irk you because you thrive on suffering and you find it funny.
Yeah,
But,
I kind of enjoy it. Like when I go to the gym, I suffer and
exactly.
I enjoy.
You think that
the
suffering is fun. You hear about children being abused, and you say, "Well, I suffer in the gym, so ha ha." So yeah, you're a disgusting piece of crap, man.
If you wanted to,
You're a disgusting piece of shit, basically. We're talking about children being abused, and you're talking about yourself as if that has anything to do with them. And you're saying, well, I suffer at the gym, ha ha, so surely children being abused, suffering, they're fine as well. It's just ridiculous. And honestly, I think you should look at yourself in the mirror and seriously reconsider your priorities in life. All right, the queue is looking empty right now. So if anybody else wants to come up, now's the time. Probably just going to do one more, maybe one or two. So, if you're thinking about it, now's your chance. Let's get you on the stage. Ask your questions. Give us your opinions. In the meantime, we'll get back to discussing suffering. Actually, you know what? Let's take some comments from the chat. What about your right to live? It's not as important as the safety for all. So, safety takes ultimate priority over everything, especially having fun and stupid things like that. We were all forced into coming to life. How is that right? Yeah, it's wrong. It's absolutely wrong. Nobody should be forced to exist. Mena is saying, you're going to force people to unalive who want to live. That's hugely against human rights. The thing is, human rights are just a garbage concept anyway. They're not really properly thought out. So you're appealing to nonsense, basically. The other life, the potential life, their safety takes priority over the fun of existing life. So safety has infinite value over fun in a dangerous world at the expense of others. And it has infinite value. So one child being abused, their safety is worth more than 1 billion people having fun, right? It always will be. Because the thing is, and what people don't understand about this, one of the main things that people don't understand is that there is no exchange rate. There isn't one. There's no amount of ice cream that you can lick that will make a child being abused in the next house somehow okay, right? It's not like, oh, I've had 2 Magnum ice creams today, therefore the child getting abused next door, it balances out, okay? There's no ratio, no exchange rate, there's no amount of ice cream that we can eat that justifies children being abused. There's no number of people eating ice cream that can justify children being abused. There's no mathematical formula that says, right, this amount of ice cream justifies this amount of child rape, okay? So the suffering, the cruelty, child abuse, safety from that has infinite value over any amount of fun or happiness or ice cream or trivial nonsense like that in comparison to an innocent poor child being attacked in the worst ways possible by a disgusting person and then murdered, right? This happens regularly, okay? And it happens to animals just as much. So to say that, surely, if two people are happy, then it means that children can be molested to death. No, there's no ratio, no exchange rate. Suffering will always take priority over pleasure, right? There's no amount of ice cream or pizza that you can eat that will make up for a child being abused. There's no ratio. So children being safe from suffering and extreme cruelty will always take infinite priority over any amount of selfish fun, selfish survival, which you don't need, you can do without, right? The child being molested to death cannot do without the safety from that, okay? It's not optional. So that's not optional, whereas having fun is totally optional, which is why it has zero value, 0.000 in comparison to safety from children being abused to death or any sort of abuse, any sort of suffering. Now, people say, oh, but what if the child is just stubbing their toe? Surely that's okay. But there's no such thing as that. There's no such thing as limiting the severity of suffering. That's just a fantasy. It's a myth. It doesn't exist. It's not real. There's no way to say, okay, we're going to put children in danger, but it's going to be just a certain amount of danger. That's not a real thing, okay? As long as life exists in this cruel world, it will be in unlimited danger. It doesn't matter how rich you are, you're still going to be in some form of extreme danger. You could get hit by a car and be paralyzed with chronic pain for the rest of your life, begging for death but unable to communicate it, or worse, right? So that happens every single day, and we're all in danger of it, and it's so terrible that, yeah, the danger outweighs anything else. The danger takes priority. Knowing that you could be sent to hell, like you wouldn't buy an ice cream if the price was 50% chance of going to hell, right? You just wouldn't do it. You definitely wouldn't do it. And it's the same with life in general. It's the exact same. You wouldn't buy an ice cream for a 50% chance of going to hell. Life is the same as that, okay? But people are blind to the risk and blind to the danger because they've evolved to do so, to be so. If people weren't blind to this extreme danger that themselves and the children they're having are being put into, then they wouldn't exist. So that means that, life existing has to be stupid. It has to be twisted. It has to be warped into doing something against its own best interests. Okay? So life is a bad thing. We need to wake up and start saying it. Life is a bad thing. We shouldn't be glorifying it anymore because that's glorifying suffering and putting children in extreme danger, like ridiculous, the worst danger possible, like literally, right? So putting children in the worst danger possible will never be acceptable, and it will never be a bargaining tool for pleasure. Hello, how's it going?
Hello. It's going well. How are you?
Good, thank you.
No, this is this is probably the most interesting topic I've seen on here in a while.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would you consider this to be a nihilistic approach? Would you consider this to be a sect of nihilism? No.
No.
How does this differ?
So it's based on empathy, compassion, and responsibility. So the vast majority of people on this planet don't care about doing the right thing for others because they don't actually care about others. They only when they advocate for communism or whatever it is, they're actually just advocating for the world that they want to live in and not caring about what's actually best for the world itself.
What you believe is total extinction of humanity.
No, all life, as much life as possible, and humanity should go last because we're the only ones that can do it for other species.
Whoa, so you're not even saying like just humans, you're saying like any life form on this planet. And like
in
how
this universe, we should be as against suffering as possible. So that means
Yeah.
animal
Uh-huh.
extinction, human extinction, and universe-wide extinction if we can.
So you're just like send in the black hole as soon as possible.
Well, we wouldn't rush it or be hasty because that would be irresponsible. But yeah, there's lots of different ways in which we could carry it out.
Okay, so if you had like the what is it called? The infinity gauntlet, you could snap your fingers, like what would that look like as far as the process of this going?
Well, I mean, the ultimate goal would be a universe with no life and no possibility of life anywhere. So the plan is really to, take over the world, start with animal extinction on Earth while removing our reliance on animals, then to start researching how life develops in the rest of the universe and how we can prevent it.
So, but like, isn't that okay? Wait, but so let's back up, because this is still, I feel like, a reductionist mindset to like essentially the only way out of the bad is for nothing to for nothing to exist. But
but most people don't really.
That's
most people
definitely
have an
could be
upside
considered
down
in the sect of
thinking.
nihilism.
Yeah, but most people have a very incorrect, upside down way of thinking of this, where actually the correct way of thinking is to understand that the world is effectively hell and that we should prevent life from being sent here to suffer. So life existing isn't a good
Yeah,
thing.
but so
It's actually the worst thing that could possibly happen.
Let's I mean, okay, on the microcosm, I think you might have a little bit of an argument for like as far as like Earth goes, but to say all life in the universe, that's a little bit out of your perception, wouldn't you say? Like you can't really like perceive how life exists in like the state of existence in the
we've done
rest
the
of the
research on
universe.
it. We've done the science on it. We've done the research, and life will most probably look very similar to what it's like on Earth, where it's just billions of years of extreme, pointless suffering.
What's the research that you're talking about?
We've done research on how life develops, what it's going to look like, suffering, and life itself, essentially. So, yeah, we're doing science on this all the time. As not just me, me and the movement.
So you're saying you're applying the biological science of Earth to the rest of the universe, assuming that that's just how it works universally.
Well, we're not saying like it's all going to be the exact same, but we are saying that yes, it is going to be very similar to Earth.
Okay, but you can agree that that's rather assumptive.
Well, no, it's scientific.
Well, science in itself is just a bunch of assumptions. It's theories. It's working theories.
It's a bunch of rubbish and nonsense, isn't it?
No, it's not a bunch of rubbish.
I think
and
we've
nonsense.
got a flat Earth, don't you?
Do you think we have? You believe in flat Earth?
No. But it's all just a bunch of assumptions and nonsense, isn't it? Of course, I don't believe in a flat Earth, but someone saying that science is a bunch of rubbish probably would. So yeah, you're done. You're out of here. So we should be against all forms of suffering, and we should do it scientifically. Now, yes, we have done the science, and it does show that the universe will likely be teeming with life, going through extremely similar circumstances to Earth. And that's because the way that life develops, it essentially follows a pattern that Earth is also following. You can hear more about that on our in-depth podcast episode on it if you're interested, which is episode 24 or 25 of our podcast, the Pro Extinction Podcast, which is on all major platforms. So Apple Music, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube Podcasts, and YouTube itself. Pro Space Extinction Podcast, you'll find it everywhere. Me and Steve, the founder of the movement, We do a podcast together that are 1 to 2 hours long each, and you can listen to them or you can watch the videos on YouTube on his YouTube channel in the live section of the Pro Extinction YouTube channel. So let's get some more people on. Next, we've got Fit Central. Hello.
Hi.
How's it going?
Great, actually.
Good.
So I did have a perspective question for you. What would be like the opposite of pro extinction?
I don't know. Like, the thing is, it can't really get much worse than it is now. You know, the world is literally an ocean of babies being tortured to death. So
I agree with that.
So yeah, it would have to be like the pro-torture movement.
You don't see besides what is the opposite of extinction?
Life.
And that's what we're doing right now. So the opposite of pro extinction would be pro suffering.
Yeah, I mean, people that are against extinction, we call them pro-life.
So is that really the opposite of nothing being in the universe?
Well, you have people that want there to be life suffering, and then you want there to be people, and then there are people who want there to be no life suffering. And in an extremely cruel world like this one, there is no middle ground. So most people think of the world as being a good thing, life being a good thing. You know, oh, if there's a planet with another life out there, that's fantastic. But it's the opposite, because we live in a world of extreme suffering, which is effectively hell. So, you know, life being sent to hell is the worst thing that could possibly happen. And that's the default. We need to start understanding that this world is a natural world, and that life being forced to exist here by nature is the worst thing that can possibly happen. Life comes about in the worst conditions, with the worst suffering, the worst cruelty, and the worst misery. So that's what nature is, and we have to stop glorifying it, right? I mean, you look at nature on Earth, it has the most suffering, the worst conditions, and people want it to continue. They find it beautiful. You know, you talk to people and they say, "Oh, I see animals eating each other. I think it's beautiful." It's like the least beautiful thing possible.
Do you think humans have always been the ones in charge of this pro extinction? Like it's on us to save everybody from suffering?
I mean, yeah, I mean, who else is there, right?
Yeah. Do you think animals are actually suffering, or do you think like nature would take its course if there wasn't us doing this?
Yeah, most suffering happens in nature and completely independent of humanity. The largest populations on the planet are wild animals. You know, there's like dectillions of them, or
I'm just
more.
thinking from the perspective of like suffering seems kind of like a emotional state instead of like, because okay, I could say I'm suffering right now, but I'm in America. I'm not in a third world country. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, it's easy to say that suffering's not that bad when we're not the ones being tortured to death, right?
I know it's like a slow torture for everybody. I thought that's what you were saying.
Well, it's
Like
not for
just
everybody
existing.
though. You know, people have different situations, right?
I mean, I feel like billionaires are suffering worse than me sometimes, just with
Maybe they are.
how lost people are. You know, I feel like that's like the main point of suffering is actually like not having a direction.
Well, the thing is, the main source of suffering is life itself, and existing in this world.
So you definitely don't see a way where any form of life could exist and not feel like it has suffered.
Well,
Death in general feels like, you know, slowly dying and all that stuff.
well, look, we
So
can imagine magic all day, but you know, we don't have magic. We don't live in a world of magic. We live in a world of basically children being abused to death, and we should stop fantasizing about it and actually do something to help them.
and you think pro extinction is going to not cause more suffering in the short term, but
Well, but how? I mean, how, the amount of suffering in the world is so gargantuan. How is our
I mean,
movement
they
going to
have,
make that
for
worse?
example, they have like you can go commit suicide. But they
What do
have
you
the
mean?
government. Like you can go lay in a tank and they'll euthanize you. Is
Well,
that
what's your point?
is that a humane way to start ending suffering?
I
Or
don't. I don't really understand the question. You might as well be asking, like, why don't we start setting people on fire? Is that humane? It's just a stupid question. All right, that's going to do it for today. So thanks for joining, everyone. Check out my videos. Check out my, follow my channel. Check out the website. At the bottom of the page, you got the links to the Discord and to the WhatsApp group. The WhatsApp's just for activism, really. The Discord is more of a public server, so feel free to just join into that. If you really want to do activism, join the WhatsApp. Until then, you can talk to me on the Discord, or you can message me on TikTok as well. I answer all of my messages, so if you want to have a chat, get in touch. But consider joining the movement, become an activist with us, and help us fight for the end of all suffering. Unless we are directly fighting for the abolition and prevention of all suffering, then we're allowing suffering, right? We can't just sit around and hope. If we're not sort of targeting and covering and including and caring about all suffering, and saying no suffering is acceptable and we will never stop taking action until there is no more suffering, then we're allowing suffering, we're supporting it, we're benefiting from it. So you have to be against all suffering. Otherwise, you are saying that some children deserve to suffer. So it's about zero discrimination. Empathy doesn't discriminate, basically. That's what we do, that's what we should do. But people do discriminate. They say, those children deserve to suffer, these don't. No child deserves to suffer, and no child deserves to be in danger of suffering. Okay, so life deserves 100% safety from a bad life, from a terrible life, from the worst life, and that's not possible in this dangerous world. Every life is in unlimited danger, unlimited risk. It's not worth it, right? They do suffer. Most of them will suffer horrifically, be tortured to death, eaten alive as babies. There's no argument against preventing that, right? We should make sure these children aren't suffering terribly. Let's get on board with safety for children, safety from being forced into an extremely cruel world, safety from being forced into hell, basically. That's what we should fight for all. At the minute, we have what is effectively hell, and the tiny minority that benefit from being forced here are saying, let's continue all the suffering because it's not that bad, when they're the privileged ones. So they're the oppressors. If you come on here and say suffering should continue, you are an oppressor. You're not the one facing the suffering. But no child deserves to suffer. No child deserves to even be in potential risk of suffering. No potential life deserves to be in potential risk. We should care about all life, all potential life, and providing actual safety, abolishing lives of pure hell, lives where you're begging for death. Like, it's not complicated. We should abolish that. It's as simple as that. And we should prioritize it because that is the most important thing in the world. Having more video games is not more important than saving a child from being tortured for their whole life. There's nothing more important than that. So help us fight to give safety to children and to abolish all suffering, all types of suffering for all species, all life, without discrimination. Let's be as against suffering as possible, and for safety from suffering, for as much safety as possible for as many children as possible. That's what we should do. So thank you for watching, everyone. And I'll probably be on tomorrow. In the meantime, message me if you want, join the Discord, read the website, learn about us, educate yourself.